Hello everyone. Hello to the ones who are here in the class and hello to the friends who are watching this session online. So if we look at public administration and the advanced aspects, the interlinking aspects, the so-called of a relook with a new mindset, wherein we'll keeping the hardcore demands of the examination at the center, we have completed almost 90 to 95% of the questions, of the topics, of the units. Only few classes are left. Today is the 21st class, right? And I will be talking about reforms also. But today what we'll do is we'll mop up the remaining portions as far as the syllabus goes. And in the next two sessions we will be taking up the reforms. Okay. So this is how things are stacked. So if you look at paper 1, we have dealt with introduction, thought, behavior, organizations, accountability and control, administrative law, CPA, development dynamics, personnel administration, public policy, right? Techniques of administrative improvement is something that I haven't touched upon. So this is the sort of the brochure that you have and in the session plan. And initially I promised you that we'll be delivering more than what has been promised on the brochure. So with regards to paper 1, the techniques of administrative improvement is something that is the leftover part. Financial administration we have done. With regards to paper 2, we have done the evolution part. Hi Vivek. We have done the evolution part, philosophical and constitutional framework. Public sector undertakings is something which is left. So paper 2, the PSUs. Okay, is something which is left. Union government, done. Plans and priorities is left. State government done. District administration done. Civil services we took up with personnel administration. Financial management we took up with personnel management. Administrative reforms is the unit which is left. Okay, rural development, urban development is something that we took up with district administration itself. Law and order and the significant issues. So let me give you a plan of how we are going to take up these portions. So today, like I said, is the 21st session, right? Including today's 3 sessions are there. If you will see reforms and significant issues, you will find a lot of relatability. Okay, so what I will be doing is today itself, I will be talking about the PYQs of them, the PYQs of administrative improvement, and will be taking up some important aspects of all these units. The idea is fairly simple, that the PYQs plus the so-called hero topics, identification, orientation, everything will be done here today itself. And with regards to the Administrative Reforms Commission's reports is something that we will be taking up, in the next 2 sessions. Whole sessions will be devoted to just the reports, and through the reports we'll be trying to hit various areas of the syllabus. and that would complete the set of classes that we have. Okay, so that is the idea. So coming to the techniques of administrative improvement. That is the paper 1, and I would refer to the PYQs. There is not much to be learnt as far as the books are concerned, but yes, there is much to be learned when it comes to learning from the PYQs. Okay, so if you look at techniques of administrative improvement, I mean, it's been long that we discussed the weightage and significance, roughly 20 marks. Okay. Now you look at the questions. Questions you will find are simple, generic, abstract. So the nature of questions is going to be simple, generic, abstract. Why am I bringing this up? Because the moment this happens, a lot of us go into a mode of ease. Arey ye to aata hai. I know this. But if you will look at the way you express yourself on paper, you aata to hai, par marks nahi aate hain. You don't get a lot of marks. Okay. And therefore, it is important that we express ourselves contextually, 1, 2, in a pub-adish manner, keeping in mind that we are not writing a GS paper 2 answer, we are writing a public administration answer. So look for elements. Okay. The pub-adish element, DM would mean decision making. Now see this question. Information technology brings efficiency and transparency to public administration. Examine the statement with suitable examples. So a lot of you would write e-governance would mean this. But have you dealt with it conceptually that there are broadly 4 areas of e-governance? G2G, G2B, G2C, G2E. ARC, report on e-governance, gives very beautiful details on this. The point is that with regards to units that are left, a lot of pre-cooked material is already there. You just have to sort of reheat in the oven and serve. Paka pakaya mal pada. Now, when you see this, then see this in light of this. And then see the e-governance. The question is asking efficiency and transparency. If I justify efficiency and transparency on these grounds, through these models, my administration has become efficient. Okay, so you will have to think like that okay, I know the stuff, but I need to make my answer pub-adish. That is something which is paramount. Otherwise, you will get routine, 30 to 40% marks based on how well you have written what you know in terms of the content, not the quality. So this is important. Next question. The term work study. So the first topic was e-governance. Its various dimensions, contributing to governance, efficiency, effectiveness, etc. Work study. The term work study may be used in narrower and wider senses. Very easy To look at specific job or to look at the system as a whole? Now, here it is important. Use thinkers. For example, Appleby. With regards to work study, organization and management, use thinkers like Appleby. Why? Because in India, it was Appleby who first time recommended O&M, and the O&M division was set up under the government of India. So things like that. Next, digitalization provides great impetus to e-governance. Elaborate. Now, whenever we are looking at a topic like e-governance, always look at both the sides, the demand side and the supply side. Digitization would help in e-governance. How it will help? What will be the challenges? What is the way forward? Use modern terminology which is coming into the lexicon. For example, G20 happened in India. India showcased its digital public infrastructure, fraud detection, redundancy, leakages, plethora of examples are there. Okay, next. To what extent has e-governance made the administrative system more citizen oriented? Can it be made more participative? So, looking at the value aspect, linking it with, let us say, things like what? NPM, PCT. यही बात हो रही है ना भाई? This is the same thing which is being talked about. Citizen oriented, citizen centricity, participative nature. Next, a narrow view of information comes in the way of successful implementation of MIS. In an organization, analyze. Then again, has e-governance led to debureaucratization and decentralization? Assess its impact on the bureaucratic inertia. So again, e-governance, Weber. Next, in the era of increasing stress on productivity, work study provides the road ahead for the administration. Identify the positive attributes of work study. Isn't this similar to what we saw in the previous question? Narrower and wider. There it was just largely the information. Here you will have to build analysis on that information. Next. Administrative reform. Now, why have I put this question in this? Because this was in paper 1, where you have no unit of administrative reform separately. So, administrative reform is an artificial inducement of administrative transformation against resistance. Cadden. Identify the nature of resistance and inducements required to overcome. So, if we look at the techniques of administrative improvement, reform is the broader word. If I have to write one word for techniques of administrative improvement, that means you are improving the system. That means you are reforming it. Next, disruptive nature of developments in information technology has changed the contours of e-governance in the last 1 decade. Okay, so the contemporary aspects. You see, they have given a broad term, disruptive. We can talk about the 4th industrial revolution, data sciences, blockchain, artificial intelligence, all those things. Next, MIS has evolved and gone far beyond traditional advantages due to technological advancements. So again, MIS. ICT has immense potential to transform governance and empower citizens. Same question has been asked before. Next, the ultimate goal of using MIS is to increase values and productivity in organization. Again, MIS. ICT can harness the power of artificial intelligence to execute policies and more intelligently, creating an efficient and effective government. Examine and identify the challenges. Why am I saying this? Because your standard content is good to understand, but is not enough to apply. Therefore, this is one area where you will have to jostle for stuff. But if your conceptual understanding is secured, it will be easy to identify and cobble up an answer. Okay, so even if within the syllabus we see PERT, CPM, etc., over the last 8 years, MIS has been asked thrice, e-governance a number of times, work study twice. These are the areas that you will have to focus. Yes, do critical path method and PERT. It is helpful. Obviously, none of you are new, you all know it, right? But how do we express ourselves? How do we build these linkages? That is something which is important. Okay? Understood? Because you will have to link it with the public administration, like I said, debureaucratization, citizen centricity. Bring in NPM. Bring in those things. Otherwise, your answers will remain GS-ish. It will be like a GS answer. So it will fetch marks accordingly. है ना? फुल क्रीम दूध की जगह अगर टोन दूध दे दोगे तो उतना ही तारीफ मिलेगी. Instead of a full cream milk, if you are going to give the toned milk, it's going to be like that. ठीक है जी. So with regards to this, I had only this much to say. Still, if you find some confusion, some queries, do ask me. Apart from this, look at automation. Look at new aspects. For example, embed this technique of administrative improvement with structures of the organization. How matrix organizations, especially after the COVID, have gained prominence. Remote working, all those aspects are there. ठीक है जी, समझ में आ गया? So we are done with paper 1. Now, with regards to the remaining portions of paper 2, let me take up law and order administration. So first I will be going through the PYQs and explaining you these hero topics of all, and then we'll be taking up the units which I want to take, or the points that I want to take for discussion. Obviously, Swamitva, PM Swamitva, right? Then do not write it that satellite mapping. Write E-governance in conjunction with geospatial scientific tools, write it like this, is helping in better planning, reducing corruption, all those things, yes. But use the term, technical terminology is to be used. I am not saying you become Shakespeare, use thee, thou, thou, okay, or become Shashi Tharoor, no. But use the technical terms, say using satellite, use geospatial. It conveys a meaning that okay, we are looking at the mapping, the patterns and all those things, the topography, everything comes into it, no? Okay, law and order. Now, you will see with regards to law and order, questions will be application based, they will involve deduction and contemporary linkage. Now, with this, you have to use the PubAd elements. Elements I have, listed them. Please remember that is not the exhaustive list. That was just to explain you. Okay? So, is training of police in India still a reflection of colonial mindset? Give reasons. This is something that can be equated, or you can draw certain threads using the colonial legacy, because it is saying colonial mindset, but the focus is on training. So remember, ultimately all of it is linked to efficiency, effectiveness of the police organization. Okay? Police reforms in India have remained a contentious issue. National Police Commission, Prakash Singh, everything will come here. Now, add with regards to, let us say, a few years ago, Prime Minister in the conference of the police chiefs talked about smart policing. Now, whenever you talk about reform in the police, the investigation wing should be separated with the law and order wing. Kyun? I don't need the reasoning, I need a PubAdish reasoning. Division of work, span of control, functional division of work, add, that is what I mean, add those things. Add those things. Because what happens is that you all generally spit up in the examination whatever you have swallowed in terms of the static notes and the material that you have. Obviously, the material will have points related to the Prakash Singh judgment. But that is why it is an examination. No, they don't need people who can mug up. They need people who can think. So add elements like these. Next. In view of the contemporary internal scenario, law and order we made the part of the concurrent list. Justify your opinion. See, you will have to draw a lot many things. For example, you will have to draw from the post-independence consolidation and see the law and order as an issue. Withdrawal of general consent, sending of central forces, all those things. Again, reform. The image of Indian police can be improved if its structure and orientations are transformed radically. Reform की तो बात हो रही है ना. What does Dharamveera Commission or National Police Commission or this thing was talking about? That you need to transform the orientation, transform the attitude. They still carry the colonial mindset. The colonial mindset was the Irish constabulary system, wherein there is a mindset of domination. Whereas, while the nomenclature, if the question is like this, while the nomenclature for the police administration in India has changed from Indian police to Indian police service, the organization still lacks the service orientation. Critically analyze. ये homework में करके लाना है. That while the nomenclature has changed from Indian police to Indian police service, but the service orientation is still lacking. Critically analyze. Now, my point here is that some of you will look at it from a very generic perspective. Some of you will look at it from a service perspective, that okay, it is one of the services. But you will have to take up both the ideas, and in light of the present values, today's citizen and the citizen of 1947 is not the same. Also, the intent of the police administration then and now, there is a huge difference. Therein you will have to bring in the hierarchical elements, that it's a bottom heavy organization. The attitudes are difficult to change. All those things you will have to bring out in this answer. Next, contemporary debate. This question was asked in 2018. AFSPA debate reveals that Indian paramilitary forces are caught between the imperatives of national security and the protection of human rights. Okay, again a question on which multiple editorials came that year. So the contemporary aspect, for example, AFSPA. Now if you tell me the recent aspects, the new criminal laws that have come, okay, also debate that the nature of the law and order should be coercive or should be reformative. For example, there have been a lot of debates about the bulldozer action, about the writs of the state government regarding coward routes, custodial deaths, criminal police nexus, encounters. So you see, the ambit becomes really wide, and the problem is that all of you know it, and all of you know the areas which are there also, but you are somehow not able to cobble up these things, connect these things. That is what I am suggesting you should start doing. Okay? Next, institutional change is a necessary but not a sufficient condition for reducing criminalization of politics. Next, Macaulay's ideas on Indian civil services corresponded to the elite theory of bureaucracy, which continue to persist. Again, I have put this in law and order. Neither in civil services nor in the unit on philosophical and constitutional framework, nor in the evolution. Why? There is a reason. Though all these units will come handy to write these answers. You see, that the elitist aspect on a daily basis is seen in the police administration. Though I agree, and there can be debates, that this question can be put in civil services or this question can be put in the British legacy part, evolution. I agree. I mean, but why have I put this? Is to explain you that the most visible part of the government is the police. Day to day on every signal you see a policeman. Next, there has been an opinion that the ethos of Indian judicial system continue to be colonial. Suggest measures for raising level of judicial excellence for achieving speedy justice. Again, it can be put in the union, government and administration, or even the legacy part of the evolution. Again, I agree. But the point is, it is a question related to a law and order, larger ecosystem reform. And that is why I have kept it here. Next. The police public interface is punctuated with distrust and fear. Suggest how the police can reform the image in the eyes of the public. Before we talked about the orientation. Mera point sirf itna hai that the ingredients will remain the same. It is just the order, quantity, right, and the amount of fire. So you have all the ingredient for noodles, chow mein. You can make Hakka noodles, you can make Singapore noodles, you can make the normal noodles, egg noodles, chicken noodle, this noodle, that noodle. So start thinking that ways that I can make it. The police public interface is punctuated with distrust and fear. Suggest how to improve, how the police can reform its image in the eyes of the public. Again, this is something related to reform, the orientation aspect. Next, even though the law and order is a state subject, it is paradoxical that the central agencies, NIA or paramilitary forces under the union government, have restricted the powers of the state government. Something like this happened in 2019. So the role of agencies like NIA, CBI, ED, all of it. Next, there has been a long-standing demand for separation of the police investigation from prosecution, analyze its merits and demerits. Straight question. Next, police needs to be made accountable and freed from the grip of politics. It is a big challenge not only for law and order but also for the development of the country. So all the Mirzapur folks, all the folks who have seen Prakash Jha's movies, the Ganga Jals and all, Khaki, सारा कंटेंट वहां से मिल जाएगा साहब, है ना? So again on the political patronage and the linkage. Next, 2021, straight question. The increasing criminalization of politics is a major threat to the basic fabric of democracy. Next, police public relations in India need to be improved. Suggest measures to strengthen the relations. See, such straightforward question. Effective law and order administration depends on cooperative attitudes of people towards police, then bringing reforms in the structure and process of law and order machinery. Do you agree? Give reasons. Then the AFSPA issue was again burning in the northeast. See, it has made a comeback. The withdrawal of AFSPA from Tripura has sent positive signals across the state and the northeastern region. Do you think that now is an appropriate time to take a more rational policy decision in this matter? Last but not the least, the government response to the Supreme Court judgment on police reforms has been lackadaisical. There are The reasons are multiple and multidimensional. Obstruction to reform, barrier to reforms. ठीक है जी. So law and order administration, like I said, the questions are going to be like this. So there is nothing new or interlinking to be taught apart from the fact that when you are talking about reforms, functioning of the police, look at what lies before that. The structure, the pyramidical structure, bottom heavy structure. Whenever we talk about reforms, we talk about this, no, multiple entry points. Nahi to there is a 1 hour episode of Amir Khan's show Satyamev Jayate on police reforms. Do watch it, it's a fun watch. ठीक है जी. Understood? Now, let us do some thinking on significant issues. Some of you might be thinking that ye aadmi, why this man is actually reading us the PYQs, but you don't realize, some of you might not realize at this instance that going through the PYQs with approach in mind is a learning process, it's a learning exercise. Because what happens is, a lot of you will think that, okay, there is this KBC, this and that, Kiran publication, right, Disha publication, this publication, that publication, unique. All of them give solved PYQs, categorized PYQs, right. There is this book also which is available, the thin one, in which the PYQs have been categorized topic wise. But ab tak to padha nahi. Right. You guys haven't studied it now, majority of you. And even if you have, by now, since we have taken a PYQ practically for every unit, you realize that there are inaccuracies, there are mistakes in those compilation. So therefore, it is important to see them in the right spirit. And that is why I am taking up these PYQs, because rather than teaching a new topic, this can be far more rewarding to you in the examination. Okay. Right. Now, if you will see the significant issues, again the questions are going to be application oriented, deduction oriented and contemporary. Saw the ideas from the economic survey which I have put in the group. देखा था? ग्रुप में डाला ना मैंने, व्हाट्सएप पे, टेलीग्राम पे, सब जगह डाला. हाँ, देखो उसे. There are case studies. Directly you can lift. हाँ, उसके जो पेज नंबर के साथ मैंने डाला था, हाँ वही. Now see. The significant issues, one of them is corruption. Extensively covered in second ARC, because that is one of the most prominent issues. It says, the growing prominence of NGOs in development areas is strongly related to declining legitimacy of the state. there is a topic called corruption and administration in this unit. Because generally you find governance, good governance, NGO, civil society in the first paper. So linking up with NGOs, now replace NGOs, bring in e-governance. Okay, that the growing prominence of e-governance in development areas is strongly related to the inability of the state, or remove the word declining, enhancing legitimacy of the state. So these things can be twisted. Then National Green Tribunal is viewed by many critics as an hindrance to economic development. Evaluate the statement and give your arguments in support of the answer. So your regulatory agencies, again the general aspects of administration. Next, disaster management. Explain how the National Disaster Management Plan provides a framework and direction to government agencies for all phases of disaster management cycle. Now you should know the disaster management cycle. From response to mitigation, everything should be known. Pay special emphasis on resilience, because of lately a lot of talk is coming on the disaster resilient infrastructure, the disaster resilience policies, right? Pay strong attention on the resilience aspect. Bridges were collapsing, right, in Bihar. Acha, chalo, theek hai. This resilience was there. There was this also CRDI, Coalition for CDRI, Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. Very interestingly, see, climate finance was in news. Okay, what if I write the question, ensuring sustainable and sustained, ensuring sustainable and sustained climate finance. Is like investing in an insurance against disasters. Full stop. In light of the present administrative frameworks, in light of the present administrative frameworks, suggest how this can be ensured. 20 marks. करो बेटा. पूरा घूम जाएगा इस क्वेश्चन के अंदर. डिजास्टर, मैनेजमेंट का पूरी डायमेंशंस. ओके, नेक्स्ट, RTI is a path breaking legislation which signals the march from darkness of secrecy to the dawn of transparency. ये सब, this is just the decoration. What hurdles do the citizen face in obtaining information from the government? Explain how the reluctance of the government to part with the information under RTI can be addressed. So your exception, section 4, section 8, all those sections of the RTI will come here. Also the contemporary aspect, for example, vacancies, pendencies. There was news, no? More than 4.25 lakh RTI applications are pending. The 2019 amendment. So see, these are the units where a lot of stuff will have to be cobbled up from here and there. Next. So this was a question of 20 marks in 2016. Now see, in 2017, same question, exactly same question. Just the introduction and the conclusion will differ, and that too because the way question has been phrased. The RTI has started its journey, but it's far from its destination. Comment. Same question. RTI. Now, see how it is linking district administration and disaster management. Disaster preparedness and management has become an important component of district administration. Now you can put this question in district administration as well as here. But since disaster management is there, I have put this here. Discuss with suitable illustration. So again, the basics will remain the same. Please understand. Draw the disaster management cycle from, let us say, response to resilience, the entire cycle, and see how and where the district administration can pitch in or does pitch in. Give examples. The moment you will start visualizing the questions, breaking them, drawing the interlinkages, half your answer is done. Then just the writing part is left. Next, the policy of non-action regarding the institutional mechanisms and legal provisions to eradicate corruption is a feature of Indian administration critically examined. So now you will bring in the behavioral theories. Taylor, soldiering, all those aspects here. Next, civil society. Autonomy of civil society is crucial for responsive and effective administration. Examine the statement. So again on the civil society. So you will find that much of the topics are same as you deal with GS paper 2 governance. It is just, of course, you don't deal with disaster management in GS paper 2. Disaster management is in 3. But you will find a huge overlapping with GS in general. Next. देखो आ गया financial inclusion. Financial inclusion needs legal backing, but it also requires increasing awareness for it to become a reality. Next, performance management requires identification of indicators and measures to ensure that goals are achieved efficiently. Next, in the network era, the TRAI has the challenging task of protecting the net neutrality from digital aggression. 2018, Facebook and Reliance issue was in the news. Next, the RTI has started its journey. Oh, this is something which is done. Minimal accountability being the dominant norm in the political system, the Lokpal can only be an ideal institution with limited effectiveness. So with regards to corruption, acts, Prevention of Corruption Act, FEMA, FERA, ED, CBI, CVC, Lokpal, Lokayukt, Ombudsman. Next, Sevottam scheme has a great potential to reform service delivery, but the opportunity is frittered away. Sevottam, Citizens Charter, National Plans for Excellence in Public Service Delivery. This is something that you read in GS paper 2 as well as GS paper 4, ethics. Next, again, the National Policy on Disaster Management envisages a paradigm shift from the hitherto reactive post-disaster relief centric regime to a more proactive and enabling environment. Examine the response of state governments in this regard. Next, accountability of regulatory bodies would address the problems of over-regulators and help make them truly facilitators. Analyze the present status of regulators and suggest the measures to induce accountability in the mechanism. Okay, understood? Now, regulatory authorities we have done before. Accountability is something also that we have touched upon a lot. Now look at this question. Examine the national health policy in the context of current pandemic situation. Identify the problems and suggest improvements. 20 marker in 2020. कोविड आया, लॉकडाउन लगा, लॉकडाउन के बाद मोदी जी ने एग्जाम कराया और ये पूछ लिया. नेशनल हेल्थ पॉलिसी कब आई थी वैसे? From sickness to wellness approach. So have a grip on policies. You will any which ways do for GS. Okay. Immediate post-retirement appointments of high officers of governments have become a new trend. Discuss its pros and cons. Values in public service. Next. There are adequate legal mechanisms to address corruption, malpractices in administration, but they have failed to curb the menace to any noticeable degree. In the light of this statement, discuss the efficacy of the institution of Lokayukt. Lokpal has been asked before, now Lokayukt. Next, ideal citizen administration interface is supposed to be based on trustworthiness and purposefulness. In reality, it is observed to be plagued by suspicion, conflict, stresses and strains. Do you agree? Elaborate. Red tapeism is a major obstacle in the implementation of good governance. Link it with decision making as well as the values in the public services. Next, recent market approaches to public services present serious challenges to traditional and state-sponsored public service value. Evaluate the statement in the context of Indian administration. Isn't it saying that give us a survey of the NPM ideology in Indian context? Next, responsibility and accountability are two major goals of good governance. Discuss the statement in the context of Indian administration. NHRC is handicapped by its jurisdictional limitations, not being able to investigate the cases of violation of human rights by the armed forces. Next, in the past 2 decades, India's public policy on disaster management has shifted its focus from rescue, relief and rehabilitation to holistic management of disaster. Similar question with regards to a reactive to a proactive. Similar question, same content. Next, Citizens Charter in India have not succeeded in their objectives in making administrative system more citizen centric. Do you agree? So whatever benefits of the Sevottam were and how they are not being able to come through the present regime of the Citizens Charter, that is the remit. Next, in India, the upliftment of the majority of people, government intervention remains a central fact of life. Nevertheless, the effective implementation policies depends on the ethical values of public servants. Ethics in governance, ethics in administration, all of that will come here, but we will have to provide it a PABAD character. Examine the role of Lokpal in ensuring transparency and accountability. Dynamics of coalitions vary with the nature of leadership, political parties and contemporary political conditions. Analyze. Disasters can push the world's poorest deeper into poverty. Do you think that a comprehensive strategy to deal with such vulnerability is required? Now, it is talking about disasters and poor. How about if we talk about disasters and children? Disaster and women, disaster and elderly, है ना? Theme can change because they are most vulnerable. So you have in GS paper 2 the vulnerable sections part, governance and social justice. अच्छा चलो ये देखो, last question from this 2023. In 2011, India ratified the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. Evaluate the existing legal framework for fulfilling this commitment. यहाँ फंसोगे. Where you do not know what the convention was and what are its features, then you are gone. It's better not to attempt than this question. It was 8B. That means do not attempt the 8th question at all. Choose between 6 and 7. Or both 6 and 7. Okay. So this is regarding the significant issues. So you see a large cross section of topics, but the core of the disaster management, corruption, citizen administration interface, these things are reflecting the values in public administration. They all reflect in this. Next, let us take up administrative reforms. Friends watching online, any query? You see, administrative reforms. When I will be talking about administrative reforms, I will just get into the ARC. I am not getting into the National Police Commission, Sarkaria Commission, Punchi Commission, Second Pay Commission, Hota Committee, Baswan Committee, Gadgil Committee, Rangarajan committee, this committee. I mean, Ranga was there in practically every committee during UPA era. See Rangarajan. Okay. I will be, because a lot of that has already been covered in the static part which you study. That is repetitive. It is largely the second ARC that you find all challenging. Now you see how they have asked it. Second ARC makes a strong case for principle of subsidiarity. So these principles, you know principle of subsidiarity? No? चलो इसको याद करने का एक तरीका देखते हैं. Let us look at a way to remember this. Does anybody know subsidiary alliance? What was that?
It was like the major portion of things like
The major portion of powers.
power, but
Huh.
in another ones who
In-
does not have the responsibility and rest.
Right. But it has not got to do with responsibility and accountability and all that. The principle itself. You see, subsidiary alliance was about what? That the princes used to surrender some of their powers like defense, etc., to the British. And it was like this, British were at a higher pedestal than those princes. So what happened? Whatever functions that they can perform on their own, they were performing. But the rest, which required more expertise, more scale, were delegated upwards. This is the principle of subsidiarity, which says that all the functions that can be performed by an authority on its own should be performed by that, and only those functions which require economies of scale, manpower, expertise and other contingencies which it cannot effectively perform should be delegated upwards. That's the definition of principle of subsidiarity given in the second ARC. Now how you have to understand? Link it with decentralization and devolution. That all the functions that can be performed by a subordinate authority should be performed by it. Only the other function should be kept at the superordinate authority. Now, this is something, the principle of subsidiarity is used in many places. Many places means the reports, many reports mention this. For example, your report on local government based on center-state local relations. So that local government should be able to perform most of the functions, only those which require some things, economies of scale, technical expertise, etc., should go upwards. Similarly, the file movement in government, the second ARC says that there should not be more than 3 levels to which a file move. So that is based on the delegation or devolving the power of decision making downwards. That whatever that individual chair can decide, should decide. Only the matters which require higher consideration should come upwards. That is principle of subsidiarity. Even not directly if a question is asked, but on the efficacy aspect of the government machinery, wherever, in paper 1, paper 2, you can use this principle. This is explained by second ARC. Read report on local government. चलो आप क्या पढ़ोगे अब? I will tell you. See, next question. Considerable attention has been paid to the restructuring of administrative systems. At the center and local levels. but very few reforms have been undertaken at the state level. What steps would you suggest to rectify it? So there was this also a commission to review the working of the constitution. Take it from there. Take some aspects from there as well. Next, effective performance management system needs to precede taking deadwood out from the bureaucracy. Reforms in financial management and human resource development. Next, implementation of administrative reforms is humongous and arduous. What lacks the push to realize the change? Humongous would mean very big. Arduous would mean difficult. Now, let me give you a tip on these kind of issues. Take them to a graphic. At least for your understanding, if you cannot put the graphic in the answer. You see, if I say the start and end of the Indian administration, immediately take it at a practical level. Take an example, just like we suppose x is equals to 10 in mathematics, no? We suppose something. Take it like this. The question is, humongous and arduous. यही word है ना? यही keywords है इस question में. Now, if you see the size of the Indian administration, and if I represent that size on a line, this is going to be a very big line, very long line. So if I start here, the reform, let us say computerization. I will face what kind of challenges? Break it down. Legal, institutional, procedural, functional, operational or functional, ठीक है? Manpower related, technological, economical or financial, ठीक है? यही है. Arduous part will come here. Humongous part will come here because the size is big. Now marry the two. See how arduous. Look at computerization. Can I say that every government office in this country, big or small, is computerized? No. This project started in early to mid 90s and still not every government office is computerized. A lot of them are still running Windows 98 and the operators are playing the solitaire or minesweeper. Solitaire they still understand, but minesweeper they do not know from where the blast happens. Okay. So the point is this, that you see, you start here. By the time you roll it to the administration at the last, this reform that you took on with, that you started the journey, it itself has become obsolete. It itself has become obsolete because of the sheer size, arduous complexities. Okay, so you always need a multi-pronged approach to reform. That depends on the type of reforms. For example, Mission Karam Yogi is a reform. Now, if you look at Mission Karam Yogi as a reform and you think to actually carry out that reform throughout the administration in a linear fashion, no, by that time the ecology which demanded this reform itself would have changed. Right? So, in this case, you always need a multi-pronged approach. So, instead of going this, we will have to go like this. But this needs to be also calibrated in a manner that it does not shake the status quo. अगर सारी पुलिस ट्रेनिंग पे चली जाएगी, if all the policemen go on training, then who will handle the law and order? Right. No. That is what you are saying is the practical street side wisdom. But you should not put it officially here. Also, what I want to emphasize it that every reform is what? A reform is a change for better. Use phrases like this, that you need change administration and change management. There is a whole study on change management. There is a whole study on innovation management. I have been fortunate to actually have studied both the two academically. Otherwise it will shake the status quo. अब आप समझिए. Now please all of you understand. Hasn't your views, the way you were thinking about reforms, changed completely? Look at the practical aspects. That there needs to be, just like there needs to be a development administration, there needs to be a reform administration or change administration or change management. It has to go through a process. It should be a multi-pronged approach. Otherwise what will happen? Acha, another lacuna. Always reform is suggested from top to down, but implemented bottom to up. So again a desync. While the suggestion for reform should be an interactive consultative process. So herein use behavioral approaches, Mayo, human relations approach, all those things. And the implementation, it should use various things related to power, authority, rationality. So change management would require prioritization. You will have to do various versioning stages. Stage 1 we will do this, stage 2 we will do this, stage 3 we will do this. And it will be will it be a rational process or an incremental process? Yes, but what will be the approach of implementation? Incremental. Because it's such a big country, you will shake the status quo. There will be chaos. Recently there was some issue with Microsoft's Azure. And you saw world over flight operations and other corporate operations using cloud services of Azure. They faced an outage. So imagine how fragile the world has become. So can you afford to shake up the entire administration overnight? No. Okay. So therefore humongous for the reason, for the horizontal as well as the vertical spread. Think it like this, think it in a management manner. From a vertical as well as horizontal point of view, it is big. Arduous because of multiple difficulties. All of you will write difficulties, resistant to change, bureaucratic attitude, red tapeism, lack of financial resources. अरे वो तो पता है, मुझे भी पता है, उसको भी पता है जो चेक कर रहा है ना, उसको भी पता है, 20,000 बार ही पढ़ चुका है वो. Qualify, add details, explain it like this. वरना ये 5-6 पॉइंट तो कोई भी बता देगा ना. मतलब किसी को you pick up anybody who has a reasonable street smart experience dealing with administration in some way, any boy or girl of a teenage or young age who goes to buy groceries, rides a scooty or a bike, goes to deposit the utility bills, have to go to post office, bank, everybody will tell you reforms, अरे पैसा ही नहीं है. You know, those people are dumb, they are not trained well. You can bring those things up, no? Very easily. Why then are you studying public administration? Okay. So I hope you understand this through this. Next, traditionally structured administrative systems have outlived their utility. Discuss as how administrative reforms can revamp, restructure and redesign the existing governmental structures to meet the new challenges faced by the Indian administrative setup. Who will tell me that what all paper 1 can we use here? जल्दी बताओ. Traditionally structured administrative system मैं बिल्कुल पढ़ाना बंद कर दूंगा जिसने इसका आंसर नहीं दिया. The traditionally structured administrative systems have outlived their utility. Discuss as how administrative reforms can revamp, restructure and redesign the existing governmental structure to meet the new challenges faced by the Indian administrative setup. Isn't it what I taught you in TPA versus NPM? Isn't it the use of postmodernism? Isn't it the use of critical theory? Isn't it the use of ecological approach? Because it says that to meet the new challenges faced by the Indian administrative setup. Again, you will write, if you do not write it using these things, you will write, but remember, the use of these things should, it should be just like this visible, tip of the iceberg. If you will make the entire iceberg visible, it will be paper 1, not paper 2. And give examples as much as you can from the contemporary Indian scenario in paper 2. Lot of you will think the traditional administration is red tape. कुछ को अच्छा लिखना हुआ, bureaucratic inertia, lack of training, capacity building, manpower, political patronage. All of you will write these things and all of you will get this was of 20 marks. No, yes, it was of 20 marks. Even if your content will be good, I will give you 4 to 5 marks only. Not more than that. By now, some of you have seen how I mark. I mark as per the UPSC requirements. I am not one of those who will inflate your marks to give you a false sense of security. Sorry. समझ में आ रही है? Linkages समझ में आ रही हैं? Are you getting these linkages? So this is important that you use the learning from here in paper 2. Next. क्या question है? The institutional legacy of well-entrenched state affect the post-reforms promises in India. Explain the statement in the light of economic reforms. Now it is looking at the economic reforms. But remember, there was a question about public policy that we took up. The elite capture. The state is the biggest stakeholder in that and it captures the policy. All those theories will come here. But you will have to be intelligent that we are talking about the reforms and that too economic reforms. To mold the narrative. चलिए next question देखिए. Following the onset of globalization, the traditional bureaucratic model appears to have lost its relevance. First 2-3 classes, I gave a very detailed account on globalization, liberalization, etc. It can be handled from there. Next, 2022. The objective of Mission Karm Yogi. The objective of Mission Karm Yogi to enhance capacity building of Indian civil servants and improve the governance. We have to discuss on these lines. Okay? Next. Civil service reforms along with transparent transfer policy will go a long way in insulating civil servants from undesired pulls and pressures. Somebody can actually slot this question in the unit of civil services as well. Okay, and it's fine. But since it was talking about reform, the problem of implementation and all those things, Therefore, I took it up here. Now, please understand transfer policy, security of tenure, civil services board. Haven't we all talked about it in civil services? Personnel administration. Regarding tenural security, we have spoken multiple times. Also, whenever you talk about clear transfer and placement policy, aren't you talking about scientific placement thinkers? SMT, CMT, right man for the right job kind of an approach. Hawthorne studies, give them sufficient time to develop the skills, to develop the attitudes towards the job, development, training, etc. Also, you can link it with Maslow's need hierarchy or Herzberg for that matter. ठीक है जी. Next. See, direct question आता है. अब now if you will write the generic arguments, it will not serve you much purpose. In the context of second Administrative Reforms Commission recommendations, evaluate PPP, public-private partnership, as a preferred mode of implementing infrastructural projects. Now please understand, it is not asking Kelkar committee. It is not asking your general understanding that you will write, okay, PPP, public-private partnership, where the public and the private partnership. You write like this, no? Many of you write like this. Then you will say models, okay, bought, boot, so on and so forth. क्या ये आंसर? नहीं. Okay, somebody has read Aribam who has given a block on the Kelkar committee recommendations. You will say, okay, I know Kelkar committee recommendations as well, my sir. I will write Kelkar committee recommendation. Is the question about this? जीरो मिलेंगे, जीरो. ऐसे इतना बड़ा अंडा मिलेगा घुमा के. किसी को दया आ गई तो वो आधा एक नंबर दे देगा. मुझे नहीं आती. So you will have to read second ARC. If you will see through second ARC, you can tackle a lot of these questions. Also other units. For example, when I was talking about principle of subsidiarity, I forgot to talk about things like MOU system. We'll be talking about it in PSUs. Right. Similarly, there are multiple recommendations. ठीक है जी. Understood. So this was our story with regards to administrative reforms. Now, I believe we are left with PSUs and plans and priorities, right? Okay, चलो PSU देखते हैं पहले. Few questions, right? But over the last 2 years, 20 markers have been asked. Generally in section A. No question in the past 8 years from PSUs have been outside section A. And since 2018, only 20 markers have come. So that is a takeaway. Evaluate the performance and efficacy of Maharatna, Navratna, Miniratna type of public sector undertakings in the context of LPG, liberalization, privatization, globalization. ठीक है जी. So PSUs performance, link it with LPG. Next, PSUs in India face tough competition from private enterprises and MNCs. Explain. So some of you will think that it is so generic. Okay, with the question related to Maharatna, Miniratna, Navratna, I know everything. Bro कर सकता है. Right? That kind of an attitude. But bro से होगा या नहीं वो नहीं पता. So the point is, you will write definition of what Maharatna, Navratna, Miniratna is there, but you have forgotten the essence of the unit. Public sector is extremely relevant. Often there has been a debate about their autonomy, accountability and control. The Ratna system was brought in place to balance these aspects in order to enhance the effectiveness of the public sector undertakings. Categorization. Miniratna in a bracket. This intro, then in a bracket, Miniratna, Maharatna, Navratna, etc. Definition. Because the definition has not been asked. However, in the present day circumstances, more so even after the, in an increasing manner after the liberalization, privatization, globalization reforms, the public sector in India, while it has made new forays, it has also faced stiff competition in light of the liberalization, privatization and globalization. While the forces of liberalization and privatization has as a philosophy the rollback of the state, which has led to government pulling out of multiple commercial operations with the ideology that government has no business to do business. But still, for some essential to balance the social justice aspect, to balance the other aspect, to balance the market forces, the government still maintains a formidable presence. Example, ONGC, this, that, BSNL, telephony. Okay. But they have faced stiff competition in light of liberalization, privatization and globalization. Now the positive aspects, negative aspects, because of which the performance and efficacy have increased. The challenges, the solutions. Khatam. But the way you put it is very important. You simply start writing, public sector undertakings are the undertakings which are owned by the government of India. They are like companies. There have been many companies, but some of the most prominent companies are given the tagline of Navratna, Maharatna, Miniratna. You will write definition. Then you will write positive, negative. Look at this way and the way I just before. There is a huge difference. Okay, so this is why writing is very important. The content part is something that is widely available. Chaliye ji, next. Market-driven profitability concerns have shaken the foundations of public sector undertakings. Do you agree? Next, public sector undertakings were expected to take the Indian economy to the commanding heights. Instead, the successive governments have been pushing for disinvestment. Critically examine how the scenario has changed over the years. So, the public sector in modern India's, from their, commanding role vis-a-vis when they were thought to be at the commanding heights of the economy, the Nehru-Malinowski model and the planned approach and all that. Second plan, I believe. Okay. So at that time it was a necessity. We had to insulate from outside predatory forces. They were not well equipped to face the competition, etc. So all those story will go in here. Next, does the privatization of key public sector bodies augur well for welfareism in India? So you see the public sector, the welfareism, the more subjective value connotation aspects are being touched upon.
So here the issues that we faced during the COVID, which PSU stood up.
Right. So we always say, even when we study governance, good governance, NPM, PCT, etc., and we study the role of the public sector, it is about government reorienting, but government has to maintain a presence. Whenever we say all these things, we say that it is not the withering away of the state, it is the reorientation of the state. And in a country like India, lay out rigs. Diffracted societies, developing societies are diffracted societies. So wherever there is a level of diffraction that is existing, you will need such setups. लिंक हो रहा है? So this is how you will have to make the linkage. अगर simple GS वाला answer if we write, not much marks will be there. Okay, you'll get some marks, some decent marks for content, but not much. Next, new economic reforms during the past 3 decades have not only reduced the scope of industrial licensing and areas reserved exclusively for public sector, but also infringed the autonomy of the existing public sector undertakings examined. So again, it is critical of the reforms. Why? Because it thinks that this new idea is actually taking public, is removing the public aspect of the public sector undertakings. So remember, whenever we look at PSUs or PSEs, there is a difference, mindset difference. There are 2 mindsets which should be there, public and enterprises. This, now bring in here Wilson. Like Wilson was 2 minds about the dichotomy, that whether I should do dichotomy, but he wanted to retain the accountability and the control. So a balance is needed. And you have so many forums, committees, etc., committees on public sector and all that thing. Also, companies going public, incorporating modern managerial practices, neo-managerialism and all those things. Dalo na usko. So this was in 2022. So you see, it is going at a far deeper level, linking the value system, linking the cardinal principles, for example, social justice, socialism and all those things. Next, India has significantly advanced in its developmental goals, increasing efficiency in the public sector and unlocked innovation in private sector by adopting the approach of building digital public infrastructure, elucidate. अक्टूबर में हुआ था ना G20. Okay, so these aspects are being questioned. So the questions are coming at a far more analytical level. It is not just about that whether that is a departmental undertaking or that is a separate corporate entity, but those learnings will be used here. Right. Next, we'll take up the last unit for our consideration. That is the plans and priorities. Again, a low hanging fruit. Largely it is distributed, but you see a significant portion in the sense that at least 20 marks have been coming in this. More so, if you will see, there are abstract areas. Why? Because the unit of plans and priority also look at things like, economic development, social justice, etc. So you will see a lot of vague portions as well. Again, the requirement is similar to what PSUs had. Now, see the question. Obviously, a major development that has happened is over the past 10-12 years is the change from Planning Commission to the Niti Aayog. So a comparison is needed. Obviously, you should know what was Planning Commission, what was NDC, etc. Right? And what is the new Niti Aayog. Also keep an eye on the different roadmaps, vision documents that Niti Aayog gives. Okay. So the question says, planning in India failed to meet the challenges of economic development and social change. Discuss the statement in the context of the emergence of a Niti Aayog. Now, I want to bring it out that while you study this, plans and priorities, also have a look at the other allied concepts. For example, bottom-up policy making, participative policy making, outcome orientation, implementation bottlenecks, etc., etc. Because Planning Commission was a top-down approach, right? It was not so participative at the grassroots level. Levels of development, the 5-year plans were too slow. Multiple things will be there. Okay, so keep that orientation in mind. Second, so either it will be a comparison, appreciation, or criticism. It is argued that Niti Aayog has broken the edifice of planning into fragments. It is a good idea or a bad idea? Both. Okay, but the tone and tenor of the question is negative. So it is very important to judge the person. सिर्फ देखने में स्मार्ट है, ये देख के किसी से दोस्ती कर लेना ठीक नहीं है. पहले सुन तो लो बोलता क्या पता वो तोतला निकले. ठीक है. So the point is always look at the tone and tenor of the question, where it is saying, without actually completely flooding your answer script with notes. Because मुझे पता है, if I put these 4 questions, all of you will write similar answers. Through experience I know this. That is why I am cautioning you. अच्छा ये देखिए next. The indicative planning is one of the favorite areas. In the transition from state-led economy to the market economy, India should rely more on indicative planning. Do you agree? Explain your position. Now all of you will be end up writing either the answers from a common knowledge perspective or from GS economy. Right, NPM. Use NPM. That is what I mean. Because a lot of you will simply say it is rollback of the state. ये तो वर्ड मतलब डालना ही डालना है. ये तो वरना बिना ऐसा हो जाएगा कि बस शादी में गए और टीका नहीं हुआ तुम्हारे. Next, link Niti Aayog with, this is another homework, link Niti Aayog with broader aspect, development administration, obviously in case of India, economic development. Link Niti Aayog with this. How it brings up planning, how it organizes, staffing patterns, D for directing, how it directs or channelizes, how it ensures collaboration between various stakeholders, public, private, autonomous with regards to civil society, also between, let us say, center and states. Okay? Reporting. B. Budgeting, finance. How innovative models are being explored to finance a lot many developmental projects. Okay? So Niti Aayog has changed the way India strategizes for economic development, but its effectiveness is yet to be seen, especially when its financial power are far less than its predecessor. So एक तो example would be that such projects have a long gestation period. So it takes time for things to fructify. Also, the beautiful part of Niti Aayog is that it has limited financial powers. Your whole of this aspirational district, aspirational blocks, all of them actually got germinated within Niti Aayog and then it came into the policy domain. So, in a way, you will have to justify the think tank approach.
Not handling that those financial
And not right,
be innovative in it.
right, and not micromanaging it. Considering India's diversity, the planning pattern of one size fits all was discarded in favor of indicative planning. To what extent has it been useful in India? So a lot of you will write indicative planning and then you will write generic words, bottom up governance, this and that. But that's not much of use. Here, adopt global local debate. Adopt matrix organization, postmodernist critique, critical theory. Next, Niti Aayog has been constituted to implement the goal of cooperative federalism. We could have put it in federalism also, but since it's Niti Aayog, I have put here. The Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan is a progressive policy. Analyze. Simple. Next, indicative planning is a middle path of planning and market mechanism to ensure coordination between public and private activities. Next, Niti Aayog has become a super cabinet in formulating development agenda of the country. Examine the statement by giving suitable example. Remember the criticism. Attempts to prepare unified and holistic plans for the country are complex and full of challenges. Abstract ideas. Alright. So practically I have in one way or the other discussed, linked, interlinked paper 1, paper 2 within them as well as amongst them and touched upon every PYQ. Every question that has been asked from 2016 till 2023. Every question. Okay. So now let us try and go through certain pointers with regards to these units. And in no particular order. So you used to actually read 4 broad aspects with respect to disaster, that is mitigation, preparedness, response and recovery. Add resilience to it. Add resilience. Also, with regards to disaster management, use, whenever you have to give scholarly backing, contingency, critical and situational theories and approaches. With regards to disaster, look at the funding mechanism. Also, when you look at the center, state, local, you see this layer is at the cutting edge, because they are the first responders. So, with regards to the flow, link this with post-decorp, because that is, in the simplistic sense, administration. Okay? Understood? ठीक है. Next. So these are the few actionable points which will easily give you the advantage of 10 to 15 marks in a nutshell with regards to these units. Okay. What should be the criteria for an ombudsman? Or the qualities, criteria for performance appraisal of ombudsman, I am giving you broad ideas. Independence, how? Functional as well as institutional, from other institutions as well as from those being investigated. Effectiveness, fairness, accountability, accessibility, affordability. How can you actually lodge a complaint? It should be easy, affordable, simplicity. Also, the force of the decision. What's the point of a decision if it's not enforceable? You see, with regards to these bodies like ombudsman, etc., ultimately the fairness and approachability, their efficacy is their performance. Okay? Now, if you look at the society and corruption, with regards to ombudsman and the corruption and other things, please remember to take on the legislative as well as the institutional framework. For example, the Prevention of Corruption Act. Okay. Then the institution CVC, CIC, similarly RTI Act, all those things. Whistleblower Protection Act, institution of Lokpal, Lokayukt. Right? Acha. Now, see the environment or the social attitude towards corruption. How it has changed. In the 80s and 90s, it was full of cynicism. I'm going back. In the 60s and 70s, it was tolerance. People tolerated it. And in the 50s, it was contempt. Why? New country, the colonial nature of the officials' bureaucracy, highly professional, highly rule bound. You see the criminalization of politics, politicization of bureaucracy, corruption, because the welfareist era demanded huge resources and therefore the corruption. Achha, tell me, is corruption only a government phenomena or is it a private phenomena as well? Even private personal level, it is also a corruption. So you might have a operations manager who is in charge of, let us say, printing a certain set of documents. He might take a cut in printing. Right? So that is also corruption. Now, why then when we talk about corruption, we mostly talk about the state and the government? Why?
Because of their larger influence and all.
Yes, correct. Because of the fact that the government is an omnipresent entity. It is present even when it is not present. Yes, Arthashastra, it's like fish drinking water from the pond. So the idea is that whenever we talk about corruption, we are largely talking about public corruption, not so much about private corruption, for the reason that first, the state commands the highest resources. Ambani might be the richest person, but is not richer than the state. One. Yes, it is certainly richer he is certainly richer than Pakistan. So, right, that's a different than the government of India or government of Maharashtra for that matter. Okay, so the point is this, that first, government commands most of the resources. Second, the interface of the government is so big that every citizen is connected to government on a day-to-day basis, either directly or indirectly. If I am using a phone, I am connected to the government in a way. Right? So that is the understanding that you should be there. So now this is the flow. So since it is now becoming cynicist, why? Because of multiple influences. More awareness, better literacy, more global practices, right? So all of this is there. Then there can be multiple factors. Historical factors, economic factors, social factors, political factors, administrative factors, cultural factors, judicial factors, legal factors, systemic factors. And since these are the factors, on these lines you will have the measures. Hai na? But if I talk about a cultural factor regarding corruption, a culture of bakshish. Right? So bakshish, you understand? Reward, some extra. So just like in those movies of 60s and 70s, when the servant would come to the king and say कि महाराज की जय हो, रानी साहिबा ने एक बहुत खूबसूरत राजकुमार को जन्म दिया है, and he will say जाओ, he will pull off the necklace and say ये रहा तुम्हारा इनाम, खुशखबरी लाई हो, and things like that. So the culture of bakshish. So even if you see today, you will see that people coming to your houses on festivals, whether Eid, Diwali, public servants, either it would be a postman or a local safai karamchari or somebody, ki haan ji, give us some Diwali. So once I remember during Diwali, the pollution of the vehicle, the pollution certificate of the vehicle was getting expired, and that time it used to be 80 rupees, right? So I gave the person, and it was probably the next day of the Diwali or something, because I could not find time. I thought that okay, now at least the fuel stations would be empty because of the fact that a lot many people would be partying late into the night. And there was this chap, and I asked him that okay, PUC karna hai, we have to do PUC. He said okay, and he took the RC and everything, and the PUC was done, photo clicked and everything was done. And I said how much? He said 80 rupees. I said okay. I gave him a 100 rupee note, and he said, and I and him kept staring at each other for like 20 seconds, awkward silence, that he gives me the balance amount, and he was like, Diwali de do, 20 rupees. Why? It's not about the money, it's not about 20 rupees. It's about that culture. So this is a cultural practice. So to remove this culture, you will have to change this. I mean, a lot of you have been to Delhi, some of you are in Delhi. You go to you go to Lutyens Delhi, where all the ministries are there, especially the infrastructure and finance related ministries, commerce, Ministry of Finance, telecom, road and highways, where a lot amount of public contracting happens. So you will see during the time of Diwali, so there would be the main road, the main ministry, and there would be small roads, arterial roads here and there. And you will see shady people with Maruti vans and other vans parked, so that the officials generally don't come out of the main gate because of the fact that it is for cars and all that. So the staff would go out for lunch for a while, during the lunch break, so they will go here and they'll say, Saab namaste, Diwali Mubarak ho. Nothing. I mean, it's not that he's giving him, 10 plots of land or something. No, a small box, sweets, a card. Why? Is it your personal relationship? Is he your school friend? No, but this culture of bakshish is there. This I am examining one factor. I have listed out 10 different causes, and then there are sub causes. Okay, so you should look at the corruption in its whole holistic, sense. Right, all those things. Okay, तो ये सारी चीजें थोड़ी सी देखनी है इसमें. नेक्स्ट इज corruption done, information technology done. Okay, this part is done. With regards to the public sector, a few points I wanted to actually mention. Okay, I want to mention about the shift from the Planning Commission to the Niti Aayog with regards to the plan. You see, the coming up of, and these are nothing, this is nothing new. This is just a new way to tell you, right, so that you can face the exam better. Okay. From PC to Niti. Acute headline. So, you see that the replacement of the Planning Commission was from Niti Aayog happened because of 2-3 reasons. It was, and I hope you all are noting it down, it was an ideological response to a changed socio-economic ecology. How? Because ever since the 90s, we were talking about indicative planning, which was emanating from the ideology of neoliberalism. under the operating frameworks of NPM, governance, good governance, PCT, etc. So, these forces had matured with over 2 decades in the country. So the post-colonial welfare era, the ecology which dictated that welfarist approach had changed. Right? And it was not out of the compulsion, but out of the preference that we made a shift, wherein the role and scope of the private sector and its capital was critical to bring about growth and development. So you needed a new sort of sectoral planning which is appreciative of the changed socio-economic diversity. Also, since India was moving in the next gear of being amongst the top countries, it was a change of institution which was required to integrate itself with the global markets. What you are saying, planning commission is mostly political in nature. Even Niti Aayog, a critique can be made that it is in political in nature. But you see, the conceptually I am looking at it, the political aspect, the dysfunctional aspect, the NDC, etc. That is very much there. That is very much there. Also, these changes actually demanded an ideological shift. I mean, you could have kept the structure like that only. Just tinker with the financial powers. But why a new structure was born? There is a reason. There are broad ideological reasons. The reason that yes, it was a political body, even it is a political body. That is what I am saying. That is the neoliberal reality, that you see the role of private sector and its capital crucial for the growth and development. Whereas earlier you were keeping the private sector as a pariah. Okay, that is what the ideology is changing, and why this ideology is coming. NPM, neoliberal ideology, PCT, governance, good governance. And that has crystallized. In the 90s, if I can say, before even the first generation economic reforms, late 80s and 90s, this ideology was in its infancy. Also, the ideology was not well proven in the context of developing countries. But look, 80s, 90s, Asian tigers and others using this ideology to ramp up their growth levels. And then using the same ideology, you see China, Deng Xiaoping and economic reforms. So now the faith has built in the ideology, and therefore you are changing it. Okay. So the institutions of policy and governance have to actually adapt to these new challenges. Also, you see the mindset changes. While, for example, it was about alleviation of poverty, now the mindset changed from alleviation to elimination. So you need a systemic overhaul. Okay, and that is one of the main reasons for the shift in Niti Aayog. So I just wanted to give you this point so that you link it better with the concepts, because practical aspects, political institution, disproportionate domination of center, top-down approach, participation in letter but not in spirit, that is there. No bottom-up planning, no thinking, innovative, creative. It's a more open architecture. You have the scope for lateral expertise, etc. So there is a difference between a think tank and a commission. Okay, so that organizational difference also between a think tank and a commission, right? So all these things are there that I wanted to share with you all with regards to the remaining portions of the units. In the next two sessions, we'll be taking up reports of second ARC, and in those reports I will not be referring to the summary. I will be referring to the original reports. Okay, but for you the summary is enough. Just for revision, just look at the summary and the class so that you learn the interlinkages. So we may not be able to cover every recommendation out there in the second ARC, but I will be touching upon the most relevant ones that is there. Also, you will learn the interlinkage part. 99.9% is done. जैसे कहते हैं हाथी निकल गया पूंछ बची. So that is there, and all of it will be connected. Okay. So any questions before we actually close the session? देख लो, have flipped through the pages and let me know. What are you trying to suggest? No, first PayPal was a payment gateway. The QR code payment was a wallet structure which was given by players like Paytm, MobiKwik, etc. But that QR code was there. Before QR code also you had avenues. For example, the barcode or simply entering the numbers. But the backbone was provided by whom? The UPI. So there were multiple things. The state and the private sector innovation coming together. The state innovated to create an open architecture. Now you see, with regards to data also, the state is coming up with open architecture policies wherein the users can actually program that data. So that's called open data approach in e-governance, where the government data will be available to be programmed. Why? Because data sciences has emerged. Statistics, data sciences is what? It's an extension of statistics only, and statistics has been centuries old as a profession, as a study, as a discipline, but its linkage with public policy. Why? Because we are moving towards data driven policy making, evidence based policy making, right? So you can say that this open architecture of UPI actually expanded it, but the background work was done. Jan Dhan Yojana, accounts were there. Without those accounts you cannot do it. So the faith came because, you see, understand it from the human psychology level, from the psychology of a vegetable seller. Okay, you have a QR code, not like this, QR code is like this, right? You have a QR code, you scan and the money is coming to your wallet, but you don't have a sense of that money, that you have it, because it is just the wallet. First thing, that is why it never expanded beyond certain educated, certain urban pockets. The real expansion happens when this is linked by bank account. Why? Because you get an instant credit message. So the moment it is in your bank account, you are like relieved. Okay. So that is the psychological angle, behavioral policy making. A good example is, so there's a book called of marketing, which is called, bas 2 minutes, which is called, it's a very good book on marketing. Yes, the speakers that validate. So it is there. So I don't remember, I'm extremely sorry, I'm forgetting the name of the book. It's like the Bible for marketing, okay? It's used across the world in B schools, whether it's IIMs or Wharton or wherever. So that had a case study on Dettol and Savlon. You know, the USP of Savlon was that it did not used to prick when you used to apply on the wound. So, but still, why Dettol is the most popular brand? Because the people do not register that sensation of healing.
With pain your healing is done.
Right. So that is the reason that Savlon did not do well in the market. So you will have to look at the perception of the people. So the moment it provided a security, you started getting SMS. Obviously, speakers came much later when the volume of transactions increased. Exactly. And you can instantly check your balance whether it has been updated or not. So that is the reason. So here you will have to use, it is not something which is entirely government enabled this. That is why private sector could do this. If the RBI would not have made the policies for wallet maintenance, then can anybody do financial transactions in India? No. You see, there are so many gaming companies which are launching Ludo, this and that, betting. They are being banned. Why? Because they do not follow RBI regulations. Recently, there was an action on Paytm as well.
Government can be facilitator and a supervisor.
Right. It is the facilitator, regulator of public interest. The private sector can do. Right. So this is what it is. So what you are thinking, your soul is at the right place, but the direction is just 1 degree off. So you will have to align it properly according to this. Anything else? ठीक है, चलिए, thank you.